The room was suffocating, the air thick with unspoken truths and veiled accusations. I stood across from Marcus, my husband of 5 years, the man who once promised to be my rock, now the source of my deepest turmoil. "Marcus, we need to talk about your mother, Helena," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. He sighed, a dismissive sound that had become all too familiar. "Evelyn, can we not do this now? I've had a long day." "This can't wait," I insisted. "Every time we visit your parents, your mother corners me about why we haven't had kids yet. You know why, Marcus. You said you didn't want them, but to her, I'm always the one at fault." Marcus avoided my gaze, focusing on a spot just past my shoulder. "You know how she is, Evelyn. Just let it go." "Let it go?" My voice rose, a mixture of frustration and disbelief coloring my words. "I can't keep being the scapegoat for a decision we both made." He finally looked at me, his expression an unsettling blend of annoyance and detachment. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. She's just being a mother. You wouldn't understand." That stung. I wouldn't understand? Because I don't have children or because I don't work anymore? The memory of my old job as a marketing consultant flashed in my mind. I had left it at 32, plagued by health issues exacerbated by stress. Now 35, I was healthier, but trapped in a different kind of stress, one that Marcus seemed oblivious to. "Look, I don't want to argue," Marcus said, his tone dismissive. "Can't you just handle it? It's what you're good at." Handle it? Those words echoed in my mind. That's all I had been doing since we got married, handling things. His indifference, his mother's invasive comments, the weight of unspoken expectations. I realized then that the man I married, the one who used to appreciate my presence, who used to say he was lucky to have me, had changed. Or perhaps he had always been this way, and I was just now seeing it. The revelation was as painful as it was liberating. I was not the woman Marcus or Helena thought I was, a mere fixture in their perfectly constructed world. I was Evelyn, and it was time they both remembered that. "Fine, Marcus," I said calmly. "I'll handle it. But remember, every action has its consequences." As I walked away, leaving him in his uncomfortable silence, I felt a flicker of something powerful within me. It wasn't just anger or frustration. It was the beginning of a resolve to no longer be invisible in my own life. The incessant ticking of the living room clock was the only sound, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Helena, my mother-in-law, sat across from me, her eyes scrutinizing, as if she were trying to unravel a mystery that she couldn't quite grasp. "So, Evelyn," she began, her voice laced with a deceptive sweetness, "it's been quite a while since you and Marcus got married. Don't you think it's time you gave me a grandchild?" The question, repetitive and invasive, hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't the first time she had broached the subject, and each time she made sure Marcus was conveniently absent. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain composure. "Helena, as we've discussed before, this is a private matter between Marcus and me." "Oh, but you're the woman in this relationship," she countered sharply. "It's your duty to bear children. Or is there something wrong with you? You know, in the old days, women who couldn't have children were considered, well, let's just say, less of a wife." Her words stung, a deliberate jab to my self-worth. I felt a surge of anger, but I held it back. Responding in kind would only give her the satisfaction of knowing she had gotten under my skin. "There's nothing wrong with me, Helena," I replied evenly. "It's a decision we've made together. Marcus agrees." "Marcus?" she scoffed. "He's just being considerate of your shortcomings. A real woman wouldn't deny her husband a family." I was taken aback by her blatant rudeness. It was one thing to insinuate, but to openly call into question my womanhood was a new low, even for Helena. "Is that what you truly think of me, Helena?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I needed her to acknowledge the venom in her words. She leaned forward, a cold glint in her eyes. "I think a woman's role is clear, and you, my dear, are failing in yours. I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus started looking elsewhere for fulfillment." The threat was clear, and it sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just about nagging anymore. It was a calculated attack on my marriage, my character. As she continued to spew her archaic beliefs, I realized that Marcus had been allowing this to happen. He never stood up for me, never corrected his mother's misconceptions. He had left me to fend for myself against her. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow. I was not just battling Helena's prejudice. I was also fighting Marcus's indifference. It was a two-front war, and I was suddenly very aware that I had been fighting it alone. I excused myself from the room, Helena's mocking laughter following me. In my bedroom, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was strong, resilient. She was someone who deserved respect, not disdain. I made a silent vow then I would no longer be the passive recipient of Helena's cruelty. It was time for her to see the consequences of her actions. And as for Marcus, he would soon have to choose a side. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the breakfast I had prepared. As I arranged the plates, my mind was preoccupied with the upcoming trip for my mother Leah's 60th birthday. The idea of a surprise getaway to Aspen, a place she had always dreamed of visiting, brought a rare smile to my face. Marcus walked into the kitchen, his eyes glued to his phone. "Morning," he mumbled, barely acknowledging my presence. "Morning. I wanted to talk to you about next weekend," I said, pouring him a cup of coffee. "We're going to Aspen for my mom's birthday. I've planned a little surprise." He finally looked up, his interest piqued. "Aspen, huh? Staying somewhere nice?" I nodded. "A beautiful resort. It's going to be special for her." He sipped his coffee, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Sounds expensive. You sure we can afford it?" "I got a great deal," I reassured him. "And it's important to me. We rarely do something nice for my parents." Marcus shrugged. "As long as it's not too lavish. You know how I feel about unnecessary spending." His response stung. It was always about money with Marcus, never about the sentiment. I pushed down the hurt, focusing on the positive. "It's all arranged. We just need to pack and show up." The day of the trip arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. As we drove to the resort, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Marcus had been unusually quiet, lost in his own thoughts. Upon arriving at the resort, my heart sank. There, in the lobby, were Helena and Richard, Marcus's parents. My surprise for Leah was now overshadowed by their unexpected presence. "Marcus, what's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. He avoided my gaze, shifting uncomfortably. I thought it would be nice to invite my parents, too. They deserve a break. I was speechless. This was supposed to be about my mother, our time with her. "You invited them to my mother's birthday getaway, without even asking me?" Helena stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Why, Evelyn? We're family. It's only right we share in these lovely occasions." The situation was spiraling out of control. I looked at Marcus, searching for some sign of understanding, some acknowledgement of his betrayal, but there was none. The confrontation that followed was heated and painful. Accusations were hurled, old resentments surfaced. Helena's true nature was on full display, her words laced with venom as she belittled my efforts and my family. I had reached my breaking point. The realization that Marcus would always prioritize his mother's wishes over mine was a painful awakening. I had been living in a fantasy, hoping for a change that would never come. As I retreated to our room, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but it also ignited something within me. A determination, a resolve to no longer be a pawn in their selfish games. It was time for a change. It was time for Helena to understand that her actions had consequences, and for Marcus to realize the cost of his indifference. The Aspen resort, bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun, should have been a haven of peace. Instead, it had become an arena for family tensions. Helena's presence, uninvited and unwelcome, cast a shadow over what was meant to be a celebratory occasion. I watched as Helena and Richard mingled with my parents, Leah and David. The contrast between their attitudes was stark. My parents, ever gracious and accommodating, tried to make the best of the awkward situation. Helena, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in the discomfort she had caused, her comments laced with passive aggression. Marcus was oblivious to the tension, or perhaps chose to ignore it. His indifference to the entire situation was infuriating. I pulled him aside, needing answers. "Marcus, you need to explain. Why did you invite your parents without discussing it with me?" I demanded, my voice low but firm. He seemed taken aback by my tone. "Evelyn, they're my parents. Why shouldn't they be here? Besides, it's not like we see them that often." "Not that often? We see them almost every weekend." My frustration was boiling over. This was supposed to be about my mother, our time with her. You've completely disregarded my feelings. Evelyn, you're overreacting, he dismissed with a wave of his hand. It's just a weekend. We can all enjoy it together. His casual dismissal of my feelings was like a slap in the face. I took a deep breath, trying to contain the growing anger. This isn't just about the weekend, Marcus. It's about respect, something you clearly lack. Before he could respond, Helena's voice cut through the air. Evelyn, dear, are you causing trouble again? You should be grateful we're here to liven up this little gathering. Her words were like a match to tinder. I spun around to face her, my patience exhausted. Grateful? Helena, you've done nothing but intrude and belittle me since you arrived. This was supposed to be a special occasion for my mother, and you've turned it into a spectacle. Helena smirked, clearly enjoying the confrontation. Oh, Evelyn, always so dramatic. You should learn to appreciate family more. After all, we're the only ones you've got. The condescension in her tone was unbearable. Appreciate? You mean tolerate. I've tolerated enough, Helena. Your constant meddling, your derogatory comments. It ends now. Richard, who had been a silent observer until now, finally spoke up. Evelyn, let's not make a scene. It's just a misunderstanding. No, Richard, it's not. It's a pattern, I countered. A pattern of disrespect and manipulation. And I'm done being a part of it. The air was thick with tension, the conflict reaching a boiling point. I knew then that this weekend would be a turning point, one way or another. The veil of cordiality had been lifted, revealing the true dynamics of our family, and there was no going back. The next morning dawned with a tense atmosphere, the fallout from last night's confrontation hanging heavily in the air. I found myself in the resort's elegant dining hall, a place of beauty that felt oddly suffocating under the current circumstances. As I sipped my coffee, lost in thought, Helena approached me with her usual air of superiority. Evelyn, I hope you've thought about what you said last night. It's not too late to apologize and make things right. Her words, dripping with condescension, ignited a fire within me. Apologize? Helena, it seems you've misunderstood the situation. I'm not the one who should be apologizing. Oh, please, she scoffed. You've been nothing but a thorn in our family's side since the day you married Marcus. It's high time you learned your place. Her blatant disrespect was appalling. My place, Helena? And where exactly is that? In the shadows, silently enduring your insults. Marcus, overhearing our exchange, joined us with a look of exasperation. Evelyn, can't you just let it go? Mom means well. Means well? I repeated, incredulous. Your mother has been undermining and insulting me at every turn, and you've done nothing but enable her behavior. Before Marcus could respond, a well-dressed man approached our table. He was the resort manager, and his arrival brought a momentary pause to our heated exchange. Mrs. Helena, I must ask you to refrain from causing further disturbances, he said politely but firmly. We value the comfort and peace of all our guests. Helena's face reddened with anger. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am? Yes, I am aware, the manager replied calmly. However, respect and decency are required from all our guests, regardless of their status. As Helena sputtered in indignation, the manager turned to me. Mrs. Evelyn, if there's anything we can do to make your stay more comfortable, please let us know. I was about to thank him when Helena burst out. This is absurd. We're being treated like commoners because of her. It was then that the true twist of fate unfolded. The manager, looking directly at Helena, spoke in a tone that commanded the room. Mrs. Helena, perhaps you are unaware, but this resort is owned by Mrs. Evelyn's family. We have been instructed to treat all our guests with equal respect, including you. The revelation hit everyone like a tidal wave. Helena's face drained of color, her usual bravado crumbling. Marcus looked at me, his expression a mix of shock and confusion. As such, the manager continued, I must insist on proper conduct during your stay. The tables had turned, the power dynamics shifted in a way Helena had never anticipated. For once, she was at a loss for words, her usual arsenal of insults failing her. I looked at Marcus, his eyes finally meeting mine. Marcus, this is more than just about this weekend. It's about us, our marriage. I need a husband who stands by me, not one who hides behind his mother's skirts. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but for the first time he seemed unsure of what to say. The realization that he had underestimated me and the situation was dawning on him. As Helena and Marcus processed the new reality, I felt a sense of empowerment. For too long I had been under their thumb, but now the truth was out in the open. It was a moment of reckoning, and I was ready to face it head-on. The shock of the revelation about the resort ownership lingered in the air, palpable and heavy. Helena's usual domineering demeanor had dissolved, leaving her visibly shaken. Marcus, too, was unusually quiet, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. As we gathered for breakfast, an uneasy silence enveloped the table. My parents, Leah and David, exchanged concerned glances but remained respectfully quiet. Richard, Marcus's father, seemed equally uncomfortable, his eyes darting between Helena and me. Helena, struggling to regain her composure, broke the silence with a forced laugh. "Well, this is quite the surprise, Evelyn. Owning a resort, you've been keeping secrets." Her attempt to lighten the mood fell flat. I met her gaze squarely. "It's not about owning a resort, Helena. It's about respect, something you've consistently failed to show." Marcus finally spoke, his voice laced with a hint of desperation. "Evelyn, let's not do this here. We can talk in private." "No, Marcus," I replied firmly. "We've had enough private talks. It's time things were said openly." Richard, who had remained silent, chimed in. "Helena, maybe we should have a word outside." But Helena was not to be silenced. "I don't see why everyone is making such a fuss. We're family, aren't we? Family shares." "Shares, yes, but they also respect each other's boundaries," I countered. "Something you've never understood." Marcus's expression was one of conflict, torn between his loyalty to his mother and the dawning realization of her manipulative behavior. "Evelyn, I'm sorry. I didn't know this would happen." "Sorry isn't enough, Marcus. Your mother's actions and your inaction have shown me where I stand in this family." My voice was steady, but my heart ached with the weight of the truth. "I can't be part of a family that treats me like an outsider." The words hung in the air, a final acknowledgement of the chasm that had grown between us. Helena's face was a mask of disbelief, her usual tactics rendered useless in the face of plain truth. Richard, sensing the gravity of the situation, took Helena's arm, urging her to leave the room. As they exited, Helena's parting look was one of resentment, not remorse. Marcus remained, his eyes pleading for understanding. "Evelyn, please, we can work this out." But the resolve within me was unshakable. "Marcus, it's not just about this weekend. It's about every unacknowledged insult, every moment you chose to ignore my feelings. I can't be in a marriage where I'm constantly undermined and disrespected." Standing up, I left Marcus at the table, his pleas fading behind me. The decision was painful but necessary. I had endured enough, and it was time to reclaim my dignity. As I walked away, I felt a mix of sorrow and strength. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt in control of my destiny. In the weeks following the tumultuous weekend at the resort, life had taken an unexpected turn. The decision to end my marriage with Marcus, though agonizing, brought a newfound sense of freedom. I had chosen to walk away from a relationship that had become a shadow of what it once promised. As I sat in the cozy office of the resort, now my place of work, I reflected on the events that led me here. The resort, a family legacy, had offered me a sanctuary and a new beginning. Working here wasn't just a job, it was a reclamation of my identity, away from the shadows of Helena and Marcus's influence. The door opened, and my uncle, the owner of the resort, and a man I deeply respected, walked in. "Evelyn, how are you settling in?" he asked, his eyes warm with genuine concern. "Better than I expected," I replied, smiling. "Thank you for this opportunity, Uncle. It means more than you know." He nodded, understanding the unspoken words. "You've always been strong, Evelyn, stronger than you realized." Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a colleague, bringing news that would add a final twist to my story. "Evelyn, you might want to see this," she said, handing me a local newspaper. The front page carried a story that was both shocking and vindicating. Helena and Marcus had been involved in a public altercation, one that had escalated to the point of police intervention. The article detailed Helena's attempt to control Marcus's life, even post-divorce, leading to a heated exchange that had spiraled out of control. As I read the article, a mix of emotions washed over me. There was a sense of vindication, seeing Helena's true nature exposed for all to see. But there was also sadness, a poignant reminder of the man Marcus could have been, if not for his mother's overbearing influence. My uncle's voice brought me back to the present. Evelyn, remember, you're not defined by their actions. You've moved on to better things. He was right. I had moved on, both in location and in spirit. Working at the resort had brought challenges, but it had also brought a sense of accomplishment and recognition that I had sorely missed. My efforts were valued, my opinions respected. It was a stark contrast to the life I had left behind. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself growing more confident, more sure of my path. The resort, with its bustling activity and diverse clientele, was a world away from the stifling environment of my previous life. I often thought about Marcus and Helena, wondering if they ever realized the extent of their actions. But those thoughts were fleeting, mere shadows of a past I had chosen to leave behind. In this new chapter of my life, I was no longer just Evelyn, the overlooked wife, the disrespected daughter-in-law. I was Evelyn, the capable and respected professional, the woman who had faced adversity and emerged stronger. As I looked out of the office window at the bustling activity of the resort, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been difficult, filled with pain and betrayal, but it had led me here, to a place of growth and self-discovery, and for that I was grateful.